by the asshole for asking my mother and father-in-law to choose between their two daughter-in-laws. Right before I was about to leave for my mother and father-in-law's house, I got a phone call from my husband. Husband was extremely upset and asked me if I had left for his parents yet. I said no, and he told me he needed to make me aware of a situation. A few hours before, his father had called him and shared with him screenshots of a dating app profile containing my name and photos. Before I could say anything, my husband reassured me he knew it was fake. A few things that tipped him off. 1. Screenshots from the profile said less than a mile away when referring to the distance of the user. 2. It was my sister-in-law who found the account. My straight, female, and married sister-in-law just randomly decided to go on Bumble and somehow fell upon my profile even though we live over 100 miles apart. When I got to my mother and father-in-law's house, father-in-law rushed out to talk to me. He told me I have every right to be upset, but asked me to be the bigger person and not cause any more unnecessary drama. Bitch, please. And someone did this really terrible thing to you. But don't freak out. When I got to sister-in-law, initially she denied everything, but after about 2 minutes, she couldn't keep her story straight. Instead of apologizing, she just started bawling her eyes out. She blamed the whole thing on pregnancy hormones and tried to play it off as a joke. What? Straight up bullshittery right there. Bullshittery. My mother and father-in-law both pulled me outside to try and get me to calm down. I asked them why they were taking her side, and they told me that there were no sides and they were just trying to keep the peace. After they said that, I lost it and told them that keeping the peace is just an excuse used by enablers. I told them that they had a very important decision to make. If they chose to stand by sister-in-law, they will lose me as a consequence. They told me they were afraid to lose their grandchild, and I responded with, "You're going to lose a set of grandchildren either way. It's either going to be the ones in front of you now or the future grandchildren me and husband will have." My husband and I are on the same page, and we have both agreed to cut contact with his family unless some kind of just consequence for sister-in-law happens. Edit! Background info. Husband is currently 12 months into an 18-month deployment for the military. Edit 2! I feel like I need to clarify the family relations. I am not biologically related to anyone in this post. I am married to my husband, who is biologically related to his brother. Brother-in-law is married to sister-in-law. Father-in-law and mother-in-law have 2 biological sons and 2 daughter-in-laws, myself and the sister-in-law. So she doesn't just not like her. She disliked her enough to create a fake profile on a dating app just to try to get her in trouble for it. What kind of crazy madness? Okay, hang on, back up. She tried to blame it on pregnancy hormones, and pregnancy hormones, I'm sure, can make you do some pretty crazy stuff that is out of normal character for you. I've talked before about when you're pregnant. I imagine it being like Krang from the Ninja Turtles. It's the robot dude with the little brain in his belly who's just controlling everything with the joysticks like that. Like, they aren't completely in control because of pregnancy hormones. I understand that. But I don't think you can blame pregnancy hormones on doing something this elaborate. This was premeditated bullshittery. You can't blame that kind of effort to do something terrible to someone on hormones. You can blame hormones for like lashing out at someone randomly. You can blame hormones for impulses. I don't think that you can blame them for something that took this much time and thought and effort to not just think of, but then to actually do, and then to actually take it to other people and say, "Look what I found." It just doesn't make any sense. The precursor to this, I believe, is the third story that we actually covered with Michelle Holloman in the podcast, and that may or may not be out yet by the time you see this, but you definitely want to see that story. It has to do with a cake. The 2 sister-in-laws butting heads over a cake, basically. OP here baked a cake for the other sister-in-law's kid, and the other sister-in-law reacted very terribly about it, even though it was a beautiful cake. So this is just furthering the drama in that family storyline. Right now, mother-in-law and father-in-law do have a choice to make. It's not a difficult one, but I'm sure it is to them, because for them, it's losing grandchildren over all of this, which is stupid, by the way. Ultimately, kids suffering and not having a relationship with their grandparents because people do stupid shit is just that much dumber. How do people not think this kind of stuff through? How do they not think about the potential impact on not just their lives and not just the lives of who they're doing these things to, but on their children's lives? Their children are going to lose a relationship with grandparents because their mom did something stupid. that was completely uncalled for. Or maybe there's a way to still have that relationship with the kids, but no matter what, it's going to be damaged in some way, even if only 1%. It's damage that would not have happened if their mom, sister-in-law here, not OP, the other sister-in-law, had just decided not to be shitty that day. Am I the asshole for asking my mother and father-in-law to choose between their two daughter-in-laws? I don't think OP is the asshole for asking them to choose, but I do think that there could have been a different question to ask here. I don't think OP asking them to cut her specifically out of their lives was an assholish move. The implication here is that it's not just sister-in-law, it's going to be the whole family that gets cut out. There has to be another way. I don't know what that other way is, but there has to be another way that doesn't affect the children and the grandparents' ability to have a meaningful relationship. There must be some other way to do that. The only one proven guilty in all of this has been the crazy sister-in-law. So if there is a punishment to be had, it should be directed at her and at her alone. The thought of the kids being affected in any way because their mom's crazy sucks. So let's try to find a workaround there. Not the asshole, but I think there's a much better play to be had. I guess that will be episode 3 of the podcast. That will have the precursor story about the cake in it. If that is already out, go watch it if you haven't already. If it is not out yet, then just keep your eye out for it. It's coming.
It's a-comin'. More drama with this specific family and them two sister-in-laws. It is a battle.
My